the Gadigal people of the Eora Nations, the rightful historic owners and custodians of these lands and all of Australia, and all respect is offered to their ancestors and tribal elders. In this episode, I'm going to cover some of the attractions in Sydney. And in the episode, My Sydney, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I find really cool about this place. Now, I've been to many countries and talked to many people, met many people from different backgrounds and lives. And it never fails to amuse me when I find the kind of take that these people have about what Australia and Australians are going to be like. It seems they have this thing in their mind that Australia is kind of like this wild Jurassic Park, where every aspect of nature and wildlife is trying to kill you.
He was raised in the land down under.
Granted, that's a little bit understandable because we do have the biggest, most dangerous crocodiles, sharks, snakes, various sea creatures, and dingoes will eat your babies if you let them. But by and large, the critters and creatures here will leave you alone. They're just trying to live their lives. Most people know or understand we have a great climate, we have a lot of land, there's the outback and the open spaces, and we have good beaches. And I guess courtesy, we as a country and a nation are fairly new, and we've never really done anything bad. We've never attacked anybody, we've never been violent with anybody, we've never had any terrorists or anyone like that. So by and large, people assume that Australians are kind of easygoing, lighthearted and friendly, which is kind of true. And courtesy of Hollywood, I think they all have a kind of picture in their minds that all Australians kind of look like the Helmsworth brothers and Margot Robbie, and we're all blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Little do they know, 250 different languages are spoken in Australia, and it's like one of the most, if not one of the most multicultural destinations on Earth. Now, one of the best attractions about Sydney, especially in summer, is the Pacific Ocean. And trust me, when it is summer, perfect beach weather, there is no city on Earth that comes close. And wherever I've been, whenever I fly home, something changes. And I get that feeling that the reality is, like the Qantas song, I still call Australia home. And I'm blessed to be able to do that, as there's no better place on Earth to live, otherwise I would have moved there. Is there a more spectacular, naturally occurring harbour in all the world? Sydney Harbour? I don't think so. Framed by the magnificent Sydney Harbour Bridge, and right across the road, the incredible Sydney Opera House, Australia's most identifiable attraction. And on a summer's day where it's 30 degrees like today, there is nothing like it. You could literally stay here for hours observing the ferries going backwards and forwards, or marvel at the engineering feat that it is the Sydney Opera House. Globally, Sydney's two most notable man-made icons and attractions are without question the Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House, both of which you can see here. I'm sitting virtually underneath one of the arches of the bridge, looking southeast towards the Opera House. The task of building Sydney's Harbour Bridge began all the way back on the 28th of July 1923, that was when the first sod was turned and work began on the approaches. In March 1924, a contract was signed with the building firm Dorman Long & Co. And by 1930, the arch was in place. 16 men lost their lives building the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It was opened on March 19th, 1932 by the lately departed Queen Elizabeth II.
There was a gap of about 3 foot 7.5 inches at 72 degrees Fahrenheit at that stage before lowering operations commenced. The lowering operations occupied 12 days and nights, working two 12-hour continuous shifts. They commenced on about the 7th of August 1930 and finished on the 19th of August 1930. And there was such public interest manifest in these operations. The clothing was given out in the press that the bridge would be joined at 8:45 the following morning. That would be on the 20th of August, because that's the time that when all the ferry services converged on the quay, so that the greater majority of people would have an opportunity of witnessing the event.
It's one of the most iconic man-made structures on the face of the earth. It's the unmistakable Sydney Opera House. Known all over the world for its unique sales and prestige location, pride of place on Sydney's magnificent Sydney Harbour. A few years back, it was also the subject for a promotional film, the Opera House Trust. It was called the Ship Song Project, and it took the most loved songs of artist Nick Cave, who was truly an international superstar and Australian legend. And it featured performances by a host of name artists and performers, some younger, some iconic legends. And it was a truly moving piece of work, an emotional rendering for something that is much loved here in Australia as it is all around the world, the Ship Song Project.
Come sail your ships around me and burn your bridges down. We make a little history, baby, every time you come around.
Come loose your dogs upon me and let your hair hang down. You are a little mystery to me every time you come around.
We talk about it all night long. We define
our moral ground.
When I crawl into your arms, everything becomes tumbling down.
Come sail your ships around me and
I found what I really wanted to do, which is fashion. And I want to actually study fashion.
My friend, fashion designer Akira Isagawa, is kind of like Nick Cave in that he's a national Australian treasure. It was probably 20 years ago, but I still remember it. It was like it was yesterday. That my agency, the Desire Group, we launched Akira's fashion career at Australian Fashion Week. And we had a party, an after party at the Bennelong at the Sydney Opera House. And it was a big deal. Guests that we had there were Lawrence Fishburne, Keanu Reeves, who were in town to film The Matrix. And we even had a special performance by Graham Murphy, who took everyone from the main room in the Bennelong into the Sydney Opera House to do a sneak peek performance of his show, Salome, the Sydney Dance Company, where Akira designed the costumes. It was unforgettable. So guess what? I'm here in full black tie, tuxedo, ready to go into the Opera House for dinner actually, dinner and a show. And if you ever get a chance to actually come to the Opera House, put on a tuxedo and do the formal thing, you're a very lucky person because it's a special place, special occasion, and it's the way to go in style, black tie. The sun is just going down and I'm here to head up to the Bennelong, which is Peter Doyle's fantastic restaurant. And it's also the venue where we held Akira Isagawa's very first after party for his Fashion Week debut. It was a very memorable night that I don't think many people will ever forget. And I mean, can you imagine Fashion Week, Akira Isagawa's premiere show, and then being taken back to an exclusive private party? And I'm just walking into Bennelong now. Now I'm here at the Bennelong restaurant. This is the actual room where we staged the Akira Isagawa after party, after his very first Fashion Week, before it was even called Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. And we had the whole floor here for our private function. It was decorated. There was a cast of every glamorous person in Sydney and also from around in the fashion world. There were movie stars, there were dancers, and it was a memorable night. And I remember I was babysitting a couple of Hollywood guests who happened to be in Sydney that night, or they were there for that month, I think it was, or maybe even 2 months. They were filming The Matrix, the very first one, Wachowski brothers. The two people I was looking after that night were none other than Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne.
This is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of The Matrix. It has the same basic rules.
And I remember Lawrence Fishburne, who was sitting next to me when we did the private preview of Graham Murphy's Salome in one of the main theatres in the Opera House. He was so blown away, as everybody was. You know, we turned on a private mini performance of a show that wasn't even scheduled to be on that night. And Lawrence turned to me and said, "Hey Paul, do you do this sort of thing a lot?" And I glibly turned to him and said, "Lawrence, all the time." It's an incredible place. It hasn't changed. The shelves are exactly as they were. The glass is all original. It's just the location and the venue. You cannot mirror anywhere in the world. story of the fabled Sydney Opera House is quite the story. A Danish architect named Jørgen Utzon, who was born in 1918 and passed away in 2008, he won an international competition to design the Opera House in 1957. It took him 14 years to build, and Utzon himself actually resigned in 1966. In 2007, UNESCO made the Sydney Opera House site a World Heritage listed site. And today, probably the Sydney Opera House is the most famous landmark representing Sydney in the world. Now, I'm guessing that you would not be expecting that art would play a big part of your visit to Sydney. But wherever you travel in the world, I believe the art, culture and history can help define and inform the experience of a city. Picasso said, famously, that art washes away the dust from the soul. Art teaches, uplifts and inspires. And we have some spectacular art and really good galleries created here. The art is ancient and traditional, as well as contemporary and modern. Names like Namatjira, Nolan, Olsen, Whiteley are some names that you should take note of and try and check out some of their work when you come here. And Olsen, one of the most amazing Australian artists. The Art Gallery of New South Wales is one of the top 3 art museums in all of Australia, and something well worth a visit. On some aspects, you may find it lacking compared to the Louvre in Paris, the Met in New York City, or the National Gallery in London, or the British Museum. But it's about our particular place in the world, and it has one of the best collections of art from this part of the world, both historic and modern. Now, I have something of a personal connection with the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Because several years back, my agency, we did a special event there where we turned the 6 major pavilions of the gallery into a themed Cirque du Soleil style event. It was amazing. The guests were absolutely gobsmacked to witness dancers from the Sydney Dance Company, some of the most prestigious dancers in all of the Southern Hemisphere. Ballerinas. There were colonial lamp waifs, a series of female nude ladies wearing nothing but millions in diamonds. There were pompadour brats pillow fighting, and there was a full Vegas showgirl routine, all choreographed by the Sydney Dance Company. It was mesmerising. And the final hall were Australia's prima ballerinas, painted all black, wearing diamond tiaras and literally hundreds of millions of dollars worth of jewels. The Art Gallery of New South Wales. Just going to go inside and retrace the steps of, it was on an evening, I forget which month of the year it was, but I think it was on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we had the art gallery all to ourselves. It was completely shut off to the public. Guests would walk up to the front door, most of whom were in black tie, dolled up to the max to celebrate Fairfax and Roberts' 150th anniversary. And it was a big deal. And all the guests were gathered in one sort of area which is blacked off with black curtains. They were having their champagne and canapes. Then all of a sudden, one of the walls of the blacked off square was dropped, and they were ushered into the first gallery, which is where I'm now. And in here, they were treated to an incredible performance by the Sydney Dance Company, who were regaled in kind of period costumes, I think it was, holding lanterns and doing an incredible performance piece. It was really quite stunning. And then after that had finished, they walked through to the next gallery, and there was another, and I think this is the one where they were, which were the Pompadour brats, sitting amongst all the European kind of masters. And there were two girls pillow fighting. And everyone was decorated in millions of dollars of diamonds. And truly, truly, no one had ever seen anything like it. I don't think it had been done before. Gallery of New South Wales was turned into our own private Cirque du Soleil moving set. And people probably would have been blown away and surprised by the first gallery, but then there was another one and another one. One of the galleries had a bunch of female nude models who were also draped in diamonds, setting together like performance pieces. And then after the nude models in the diamonds, the next gallery was full of Vegas showgirls doing a full dance routine in styled costumes. It was actually quite surreal. And these weren't just any kind of dancers, they were the Sydney Dance Company top dancers. And this was choreographed and it was scored to music. And people just lost their minds as they were going around. And after the Vegas showgirls routine, the last salon was the Sydney Dance Company, or the Australian Dance Company's prima ballerinas. And there was like 7 or 8 of them. They were painted black, draped in diamond tiaras, painted black, and the lights were dropped. So all you could literally see were these ballerinas dancing on point, draped in diamonds. It was unforgettable. I don't think anyone that went there that night will probably ever forget it. It was definitely an exquisite art experience where dance, culture, music, fashion all collided. Kind of mythical, which you can see in the video that accompanies this film. In 2021, the Art Gallery of New South Wales celebrated its 150th anniversary. It's a big deal, a big milestone for a country that's only 250 years old. But on the 3rd of December, just gone in 2022, the gallery completed its most extensive and significant expansion in its history with the addition of the Sydney Modern Project. And it's the most significant cultural addition to Sydney for several decades. It actually increased the footprint of the Art Gallery of New South Wales by 100%, and it's a feat of genuine marvel of engineering. The transformation of the Art Gallery created new art spaces, new museum campus across 2 buildings, connected by a public art gallery garden in one of the world's most beautiful cultural precincts. It took 10 years and 344 million Australian dollars to boot. But on Saturday, December the 3rd, the waiting was over and the art gallery opened their doors to this new building. And so far, it's been very well received. It's really worth checking out. It was designed, again, just like the Sydney Opera House, there was an international competition where we took entries from all over the world. And it was designed by the winning architect, who were the Pritzker Prize winning architects, Kazuyo Sajimi and Ryui Nijijima of Tokyo-based firm SANAA. And the new building, the centrepiece of the Art Gallery Sydney Modern project, doubles the architectural footprint, the museum space, the gallery space and exhibition space. It's connected to the 19th century neoclassical building that you all know, the big sandstone marvel, by a welcome plaza and a series of landscape gardens. So it's kind of an indoor-outdoor happening. The new gallery consists of a series of sprawling, airy glass-fronted and interlocking pavilions and step terraces that have been built into the actual parkland with a land bridge. Really cleverly done how they've kept the eco-consciousness of the building to fit in with the environment and the natural order of things. Now, the Australian Museum is where, amongst other things, you can learn about Australia's First Nations people, the ancestral custodians of our land. It's quite amazing to think what kind of damage that the white people have done to the Indigenous First Nations people in just 250 years. Genocide, displaced them, dispossessed them, broke them as a race. And it's no wonder they carry intergenerational trauma to this very day. And it's no wonder also that a lot of people call the 25th of January Invasion Day, because it was. Not to be confused with the Australian Museum, the Sydney Museum is where nature, science and culture meet. It's Australia's first museum, and you can learn more about the First Nations people. Now, Aboriginal people, as I may have said already, are the oldest continuously living civilization in history, some 60,000 years. And remarkably, the culture, against all the odds, is remarkably strong against all the terrible things that have been done to it. And visitors can experience this significance at festivals and in galleries across the city. The building is a modern museum built over and around the grounds of Australia's first government house, and it celebrates the people and events that have shaped the character and soul of this city. In 1788, Governor Phillip chose this site for his official residence, and it quickly became the centre of the administrative and social life, an important focus, a first contact between the Gadigal people and the colonisers. There's nothing quite like Sydney's ferries. They're so unique to Sydney, largely because of the tyranny that this massive harbour created for people. Literally to this very day, some people on the south side of the harbour are reluctant to go to the north side and vice versa. If you manage to get on a Sydney ferry, you'll see they're quite old. And Sydney's ferry services can actually trace their origins right back to the first fleet of Sydney Cove in 1789. In 1789, a small boat provided a link between Sydney Cove and the farming settlement of Parramatta. It creates a very peculiar set of circumstances when you have to navigate such an immense waterway. Whether you know it from the history books or you know it from the movie The Matrix.
Get in.
The locations around Sydney Harbour, the rocks, few have such a fascinating past. It's a small district near the heart of Sydney, on the hillside above the western shore of Sydney Cove and Circular Quay. It's here that the very first huts were built, the first settlement. The Rocks is Sydney's authentic maritime village, the place where the first early colonial settlers camped. Then they built their huts, all on the fringe of the water, perched on the rocky inclines that gave the settlement its name, the Rocks. Today, the Rocks is a popular tourist destination for people who want to see some of the early history. Now the place is full with restaurants, tourist attractions, and it's well worth a walk. Now, no secret that Australians like a drink, and the oldest pub in all of Sydney is in the Rocks. It's called the Fortune of War, and it's embodied in the history of Sydney. It's the oldest continuously licensed hotel in all of New South Wales. The Fortune of War has a long, colourful history as a popular first and last stop ashore. In the beginning, it was sailors and soldiers heading off to World War I and World War II, and they were encouraged to have the Fortune of War when they departed Sydney Cove to defend their country. The Fortune of War was built by a former convict in 1828. Samuel Terry was the name, who later became known as the Botany Bay Rothschild due to his astute business dealings. Samuel Terry arrived in Australia in 1800 after being convicted of the theft of 400 stockings, and was sentenced for transportation for 7 years. After his sentence, Terry moved to Sydney from Parramatta, became an innkeeper, and received one of the 20 liquor licences granted when they were being curtailed in 1810. The Fortune of War has been used as a public house for over 188 years.